All right, comrades. All right, comrades. We've got a lot to cover today, so let's just get into it. Let's not have any fanfare and starting up with anything cute. It's Dwight's Bites. It's your Dwight's Bites for this week. It's not a weekly thing. Anyway, whatever. Unless you want it to be, let me know. Let's start off here. A really disheartening piece of news that came out last week on September 21st. And I'm just going to read briefly here from the New York Post. Robert Kraft, everybody's favorite billionaire douchebag sports team owner. That's too many to count. But Robert Kraft, this is from the New York Post. Robert Kraft likely to get off in Florida massage parlor case. I'm not going to say it. Let's keep reading. Looks like the New England Patriots owner Robert Kraft is going to beat his Florida sex solicitation rap. Prosecutors said Monday that they won't challenge an appeals court ruling that banned them from using a surveillance video from inside the Orchids of Asia day spa against Kraft, which all but killed their sex for cash case against the billionaire NFL owner, ESPN reported. Based on the analysis and after consulting with the prosecuting state attorney's office, the decision was made not to seek further discretionary review, said Kylie Mason, a spokeswoman for the state attorney general's office, according to the report. Kraft's attorney declined to comment on the decision, but asked in a court motion filed Monday that the video be destroyed. Only by ordering the state to destroy the videos and to comply with interim measures securing them can the court guard against the palpable risk of further leak or misuse and correspondingly vindicate the blah, blah, blah. Shut the fuck up. Jesus Christ, what bullshit. What overpaid $2,500 an hour bullshit. If you guys don't remember what happened, let me explain it to you briefly. There was a suspected sex trafficking ring in the town of Jupiter, Florida, where Robert Kraft frequents. He owns a home in Palm Beach. And there was a sting because there was suspected human trafficking, human sex slave trafficking in Florida. Not to isolate it to Florida. It's in many parts of the country, fucking regrettably. But this is women are brought from their home countries and are enslaved. They're fucking enslaved. They can't go anywhere. Their passports are held, and they are brought somewhere without any resources or familial connections. Blah 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 blah. It's sex slavery. Robert Kraft, the tape that they're talking about was likely that there's a tape of him, quote, receiving sex services in this parlor. He was a sting one of 25 men, and he is having the charges dropped against him. And moreover, what they're asserting here and what this overpaid douchebag lawyer is for his overpaid douchebag client is asserting is that they want the state to destroy the evidence so that they could not cause any further embarrassment to the 79-year-old. Get fucking real. Get fucking real. What was disgusting was the last part of this. I mean, obviously the rest of it is fucking disgusting. But last month, the 4th District Court of Appeals ruled that investigators had fumbled by secretly recording the surveillance footage and violated Kraft's right to privacy. The footage could therefore not be presented as evidence if he went to trial, essentially killing the case. What's so disgusting about this is that this billionaire's, quote, right to privacy, which, you know, I would argue if you're a billionaire, you should frankly have your rights stripped of you. But sorry. Oh, my fucking allergy laugh. I don't mean to laugh too much. This shouldn't make it in. I'm sorry. I think that they have their rights stripped of them. If you reach $1 billion, that's it. That's it. No rights. Straight to the fucking gulag. Sell those shares. All right, Dwight, fucking get it together. Jesus Christ. It was such a... Listen, I'm recording this the day after the debates. I'm tired. I'm hungover. And this is just... It's so infuriating. I'm sorry. This is just a defense mechanism. All right. Come on. What's disgusting about this is that his, quote, right to privacy, which again is just like, you know, a manipulation, of a legal maneuver, a legal manipulation, is trumping the fucking human rights of the women that were enslaved and you know, he paid their captors essentially to perform sex. He paid their captors so that these women performed sex work on him. And tell me if I'm reading this incorrectly too, but it says that investigators had fumbled by secretly recording the surveillance footage. So I don't even think that what to me it's what they're presenting is it sounds like an investigator or something recorded like with his cell phone the security footage from a little monitor television or something. Not even that it's not even that the footage itself was inadmissible, because this was a sting, so they probably had this set up, but they probably discovered through some discovery process or something that one investigator had done this, and therefore they jumped on that and nullified that. This is what's so fucking asymmetric about the American justice system, and we must state it every time we see it, and this is no different, is that if you're rich, the law does not apply to you. And this guy was the recipient of sex services from an enslaved person. It's so insane to even say. It's hard to even overstate it. And I have to say too, and I think I might be parroting this from one of my favorite podcasts, which I actually just saw from Democracy at Work, is going to weekly format, which now includes Juliana Forlano, which it was originally just with Dr. Harriet Fraud, which is called Capitalism Hits Home. And she talked about this, and I think something that she said, or maybe I made this up. Anyway, credit her if it's hers, and if not, it's just fair game. It's not as if this billionaire guy, could not go out and get non-sex slave sex. It's not like he couldn't go, pulling sex without paying for it directly or something like that. Not that there's any issue with that in a regulated legal sense, but the point is the brutality of it. The point is he went to Florida where he has a home, and he sought out this kind of like crazy power grab. I think it's disgusting, and now he's not getting any jail time or any comeuppance for it. So fuck you, Robert Kraft. Fuck you. Just fuck you. The next thing I thought was just an interesting explanation, like a nice just way of talking it out. And it was an interesting article that I saw in the Houston Chronicle, of all places, by Julie Garcia, and she interviewed somebody. The name of the title of the article is "Can't Even: A Detailed Look at Why Millennials Are So Exhausted." And if you're a millennial, you'll probably vibe with this, and if you're a Zoomer, you're probably like stuffing gasoline into old wine bottles with rags or something. Anyway, so long story short, this is there was a book written by Anne Helen Peterson, and she was talking about her experience as a millennial. And it says here, Anne Helen Peterson knows this inescapable feeling well as all the others that plague our generation: economic instability, lack of work-life balance, a dependency on digital technology for work and play, and seemingly never-ending climate catastrophes. I'm just going to skip a little bit and go to the question and answer here, a little bit of the interview. And so the interviewer asks, why did you want to continue researching millennial burnout? She says, this book is an opportunity to look at the history of the economic and child rearing and labor laws to see how they contributed to where we are today in this current moment. I really try to extend it from the white middle class experience and get to all different corners of how people are experiencing millennial burnout. Question: prior to the cultural and political trash fire that has been 2020, that's a very millennial phrase, were you able to pinpoint concrete reasons why millennials feel near constant burnout? The answer is, there are a lot of things creating burnout: a lack of a social safety net, an overarching sense of precarity that it is just worse than before. While I finished the book well before the pandemic, I was able to add a preamble that talks about the fact that a lot of millennials know that we're just waiting for the other shoe to drop. There was a, quote, stable economy, of course, and then this isn't going to stick around. We're conditioned to some sort of catastrophe. I just want to pause there and make a point that I was talking to a friend about the other day, about how for millennials, at least I can speak to this in my millennial experience, and, if you're a millennial, you might be nodding along at this, and if you're a Zoomer, you might be nodding so hard that your head falls off, that we expect things to get worse. Even when good things happen, we're like, yeah, what's coming around the corner? Come on, this isn't going to last, or this isn't going to be good. There's a lot of, I believe psychologists call it thinking traps, I think, that we fall in. It's probably just like latent symptoms of depression or anxiety or something like that, which is like minimization of the positive, maximization of the negative, catastrophizing, etc. You can tell I've worked on this. But there was an interesting parallel that I remember a college professor talking about, and I'm probably going to bungle this up, but just stick with me and just bear with me for at least the concept. And she was talking about like the kind of like younger generations of the Soviet Union, like people that would be Gen X now. And she was talking about how they culturally just expected things to get worse. Like that was just like the cultural expectation, is that things always get worse. Things don't get better. There is no improvement. Things just get worse. And of course, this was in the lead up to the decline of the Soviet Union. And I was thinking about that experience for millennials and for Zoomers, for young people writ large in America, or in, many capitalist countries for that matter, is that at least for, myself, who is a millennial, things have gotten worse. I mean, I graduated college into the Great Recession. And there were people that graduated like, a semester later than me or a year later than me that were thrown into a completely different economic position just than my peers that graduated just before the economic recession. It was fucking wild to watch, like people that were like graduated a year or two earlier than I, and then a year or two later than I, and just watch how quickly divergent their economic futures were. Extremely divergent. Tragic in some cases, unfortunately. And I think it's really interesting for us to kind of reflect on why we have this feeling, which also it can be co-opted by neo-fascist factions to say like, yeah, things are going to get worse. So, you might as well do the safe thing. And, immigrants are coming to take your job so we can, jail them and anyway, etc. So the point is that we do have, as younger generations, especially if you just watch the debates, man, the debate with Trump and Biden, like what hope would you possibly have watching this fucking, Adderalled out, grumpier old men reboot? Like watching these fucking geeked out geezers lose their minds in defending their capital interests. And we're sitting here with like, with an eviction notice on our door being like, hello, fucking hello. Like, are you serious? Anyway, it was something I wanted to share with you guys. So let me continue here with this. The question is, do all millennials feel the same kind of burnout? And she says, I find there is so much more texture to what burnout feels like, depending on where you are in the generation, what your race is, your immigration status, or your class. All of these things can make burnout layer onto you differently. There's this commonality with exhaustion because of capitalism and that feeling of precarity. We can acknowledge all the different ways it accumulates on people, and that helps us feel solidarity. And there seems to be a group of willingness to affect change that works for everyone, not just certain types of people. I like how she's like thinly veiling, these kind of like populist leftist ideas into this Houston Chronicle article. It's pretty cool. I'm sure there's, fucking boomer downstream oil and gas guys reading this on a Sunday being like, in our generation, if you wanted a free college, you would, go to war and get a GI Bill. It's like, bro, you've been working in an air-conditioned office for like 35 years. Like, fucking shut up. That reminds me, I got to go troll people on my Catfish LinkedIn profile. Anyway, question here. In the 1980s, the conversation about whether, quote, working women could have it all, is this conversation now about young workers having a work-life balance? And she answers, that attitude or feeling that we have to be working all the time cuts across class. The working poor feel like they need to figure out one or two jobs to survive and hustle in between that. A middle-class person must work a knowledgeable job in order to sustain their class position. You have to show that you can work all the hours, even if you're not paid by the hour. And that reminds me, too, I don't know the history of this, but I'm going to continue to throw out some wild speculation. Salary, to me, seems like a tool to extract more out of workers without paying them. And I remember somebody, a work colleague a few years ago saying this to me, saying like, well, we're all replaceable. And that person ended up rising to quite a high rank within the organization. And I remember, and had, many hundreds of people report to him. And I remember thinking like, oh, fuck. Like, that is what they talk about when they say like corporate culture. I remember when I was going to like job fairs and stuff in the mid 2000s in college and stuff. And there was a big stress talking about corporate culture. Oh, I remember what it was. I went to a job fair and there was like a hedge fund there. And it was a big, big hedge fund. They employ gazillions of people, whatever. Their market cap is blah, blah, blah. But they were like, we're not really so concerned about what your major is, even if it's art history or something like that. We're really more concerned about whether or not you're going to fit into the corporate culture. And I remember 10 years later, once I was like, fucking fully ass radicalized, I remember thinking back on that conversation, and there wasn't one person that I heard that from as well. There were a few people that I graduated with that ended up working there, who talked about this corporate culture a lot. And what it really meant was you burn out. You're available at all hours. You're expected to, they glom on to these young, hungry kids, from and just completely extract as much value in fucking spreadsheets and prospectuses and, 3-hole punches from them as possible until they freak out or join like a consulting company or whatever. So I say that to say, like, salary as a tool means you don't have to pay that person by the hour. That if they are racked with anxiety and they're up at 2 a.m. to finish this thing before a client presentation or something like that, or or even if it's not some hoity-toity finance thing, even if they do something, even if they're a first-year accountant in Des Moines or whatever, that means that you don't have to pay them for those extra hours that they're working. And oftentimes what happens in American capitalist corporate culture, organizational culture, and this spans through nonprofits as well, and if you're working at a nonprofit, you might be nodding so hard that your head falls off, is that you have to fill the role that you should be promoted for before you get promoted to it. Meaning, you need to do the extra things, you need to do the extra pieces of work that would be expected of the role before you're compensated for it. And only when you get to a place where you're just like, look, man, I think I'm going to fucking lose my mind. Like, I'm doing all this. I can't do this. I need some help. I need to, or at least fucking compensate me. Then they'll be like, all right. We got enough out of this person. We pushed them as hard as we can without having them fucking lose their minds. We'll give you the begrudging promotion. That is an extremely damaging way to have corporate advancement or career advancement. Even if you're not, and this is why I'm bringing this up, is because in this article she's talking about this. She expresses explicitly in the beginning that she's talking about like the white working experience and the kind of professional managerial class for millennials and stuff. It's that even if you are to rise and be lucky enough to have the privilege enough to be in that, you're not safe. Basically, unless you're part of the fucking landed gentry, you're not safe. Anyway, I think we spent enough time talking about this thing. I think the takeaway for this is mental health is being shredded to fucking bits on all spectrums. I mean, we know what's happened to essential workers, and that's going to transition to the next piece that I'd like to talk to you about, which is a Harvard study that I came across from Harvard School of Public Health. And it's very short, and I'm just going to read it in its entirety here. It says, how COVID-19 is affecting mental health across generations. It says here, adults with small children or who are helping care for elderly parents are typically experiencing the worst mental health issues during the coronavirus pandemic, according to Karen Stan Koenen of the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. Koenen, professor of psychiatric epidemiology, discussed how the COVID-19 pandemic is affecting the mental health of different generations in a September 21st Facebook Live interview. It goes to state here, Koenen studies the mental and physical effects of violence and trauma, such as sexual assault or natural disasters. Living through such experiences can result in anxiety, depression, or post-traumatic stress disorder, and can also increase the risk conditions such as heart disease, diabetes, or dementia. Likewise, COVID-19 can cause both physical and mental effects. The infection itself can be physically devastating, but so can the psychological toll of experiences such as losing a loved one to the disease, losing a job, worrying about being evicted, or even just the stress of complying with stay-at-home orders. Millennials, for instance, parents juggling childcare while trying to get their own work done, may be facing the most COVID-19 related stress right now, said Koenen. Older adults, boomers, may be handling the disruption better, in part because they've experienced more of life and know that bad times eventually pass. Fucking says you, boomer. Teens, quote, Gen Z, Zoomers rise up, what up, may also be able to adapt more readily to COVID-19 changes such as online school because they're more used to virtual environments. Because that's really tragic. Like, oh yeah, you're still young enough to be pliable that you can get used to fucking tragedy and trauma. But Conan said that long-term school disruptions have adverse impacts. Oh, buddy, we don't even know the fucking whole of it yet. So the point that I wanted to make from this too, which was really interesting, is obviously we all know how fucking horrible we feel due to the pandemic, the recession, climate change, but we won't have even realized the devastation that was caused by this in its true awesome total. And I say awesome like literally just like in this awe-informing way until many decades pass. Because for us, who may, who have had their lifestyles disrupted, maybe you don't get the exercise that you used to be able to, maybe you're drinking more, maybe you're using drugs more to cope with the stress or to cope with the loneliness, or just straight up, having depression that is deleterious to your health and actually disrupts your body. We won't even fully realize the effects that this has until many years from now in its total. I think I remember saying this before, but I remember seeing some pictures of my family, some older family members. The pictures would have been from like early 50s, probably the late 40s. And these were people that grew up really in the Depression, and lived their early parts of their lives in the Depression. And I'm looking at pictures of them, and I'm looking at these photos, and I'm like, yeah, they look like old people. Then I'm like thinking about the math, like when were they born, and when was this wedding, like when was this picture taken? I'm like, this motherfucker was 40, and he looks like a fucking old prospector, like from the gold rush. Like I say this to say the toll taken on people when they go through these horrible scenarios weathers you and harms you physically. So I just don't even think, tell me if somebody has found this, let me know, because I'm still waiting for like the new, for the 2020 life expectancy numbers for the United States. That was another thing that I wanted to tie in from the thing I was talking about with the decline of the Soviet Union before, is when the Soviet Union dissolved and broke up, and, there was shock capitalism and stuff, the life expectancy plummeted because of the lack of social programs. There's a million different reasons for it, but it plummeted because of these economic reasons, or the end of an empire, the end, whatever. And this is something that we're experiencing now, let alone the fucking, as of today, the 205,000 people that have been killed because of COVID. I mean, I'm curious to see what the effect on life expectancy in the United States is due to the coronavirus. And the last paragraph from this is the part that just really shows its Harvard roots. It says, Conan noted that there are many ways to counteract the effects of COVID-19 related stress and other trauma, including therapy, meditation, yoga, taking walks, and maintaining a regular sleeping and eating schedule. I'm sorry. Okay, so let's just get this out of the way. This is a class-based thing, right? This is only at Harvard would they suggest this, that this, have you tried yoga and taking long walks? Like, motherfucker, we're working. Like, I know every time I get back into the apartment, I like collapse. Like, I throw my fucking wallet and keys and mask and hand sanitizer and everything else onto the little stand there, and I just like sit with like 1,000-yard stare for like 5 minutes just to be like, I made it home. It is a harrowing experience to just even go through your day to day, let alone to then like gather yourself and say like, yeah, I'm definitely going to do yoga, or like I'm walking, like I'm not going to take the train because I'm creeped out. My feet hurt. Like barely anybody has access to therapy. Maintaining a regular sleeping and eating schedule. How much? Raise a hand. Here's a TikTok thing. Put a finger down if you have been forced into a biphasic sleep schedule by waking up in the middle of the night for a period of like 1 to 2 hours, just because your mind can't handle the horror of the day and the life that you've had. Like, you just wake up and you're just like, okay, I'm here. All right, let me doom scroll for a while until I just get so disheartened I just like fall asleep with my phone in my hand and my face smushed to my pillow. Yeah, put a finger down if you do that and have done so since the beginning of the pandemic. We're freaked out. All of our coping mechanisms have been completely disrupted. We're in a absolute mental health crisis, and we've talked about this before on the previous Dwight's Bites. Very interesting content here. So let's move on to the next piece of information. Let's take a look at this crisis of capitalism. Okay, I'll save it for when we get to the bottom. This was a New York Times article that jumped out at me September 19th by Jessica Silver Greenberg and Rachel Abrams. And the title of it is Nursing Homes Oust Unwanted Patients with Claims of Psychosis. They're finding what families say are pretexts to send patients to hospitals for psychiatric care and then refusing to let them return. And this is going to fucking blow your mind. In a New York nursing home, a resident hurled a bingo chip. At a home in Georgia, a 46-year-old woman, paralyzed from the waist down, repeatedly complained that no one had changed her diaper. In a California facility, a patient threw tableware. Not a big deal. In all three cases, the nursing home cited the incidents as a reason to send the residents to hospitals for psychiatric evaluations and then to bar them from returning. Across the United States, nursing homes are looking to get rid of unprofitable patients. Fuck this, man! Jesus fucking Christ! Primarily those who are poor and require extra care, and pouncing on minor outbursts to justify evicting them to emergency rooms or psychiatric hospitals. After the hospitals discharge the patients, often in a matter of hours, the nursing homes refuse them re-entry, according to court filings. Government watchdogs in 16 states and more than 60 lawyers, nursing homes, employees, and doctors in this court filing. The practice at times violates federal laws that restrict nursing homes from abruptly evicting patients. Oh, you know those famously good laws that save us from fucking the gaping maw of capital. Even before the pandemic, there was a tremendous pressure to get rid of Medicaid patients, especially those that need high levels of staffing, said Mike Wasserman, a former chief executive of Rockport Healthcare Services, which manages California's largest chain of for-profit nursing homes. That would be a gulag candidate here, I think. The pandemic has basically supercharged that. He said homes often take advantage of fits of anger to oust patients claiming they need psychiatric care. Just to pause there for a second, which is interesting. That one sentence, I'm going to read it again. Even before the pandemic, there was tremendous pressure to get rid of Medicaid patients, especially those that need high level of staffing. He just literally did one of those cost sheets in that sentence. Remember, we talked about this over the course of Eat the Rich, that, capitalists will look at a transaction or a business, and they'll look at fixed costs and variable costs, and they'll look at the potential profit, and they will make the calculation. If it's, a positive profit, a rate of return, then they will engage in that profit-seeking behavior. And if it doesn't, they will likely not engage in that profit-seeking behavior. And what he's saying is that the revenue, meaning the payments from Medicaid, do not exceed those of the cost of labor. There was tremendous pressure to get rid of Medicaid patients, especially those that need high levels of staffing. Staffing is labor dedicated to that one patient. How much money is that patient bringing in with their Medicaid coverage? How much money is going out to take care of that patient with staffing? And if that number is in the red, if that number is below zero, then they have a economic incentive to brutalize this patient and disrupt their life, often at their most vulnerable. Again, gulag candidate. Continuing here, about 70% of American nursing homes are for-profit. The most lucrative patients are those on short-term rehabilitation stints paid for by private insurers or Medicare, federal program that insures seniors and people with disabilities. Poor people are on longer-term stays are covered by Medicaid, which reimburses nursing homes at a much lower rate than Medicare. Again, in this country, your health outcomes are based on your ability to pay. The financial incentive to have more Medicare or privately insured patients and fewer on Medicaid becomes more pronounced when the Medicaid patients have illnesses like dementia that require extra care from staff. Again, this is the cost sheet, the P&L. Nursing homes have faced acute staff shortages as the coronavirus has left employees sick or afraid to go into work. Workers said they faced increased pressure from their employers during the pandemic to get rid of the most expensive, least lucrative patients. I cannot tell you how fucking morally bankrupt this is. Invoking psychiatric problems is a popular tool. Nursing homes routinely admit patients with dementia, Alzheimer's, or similar illnesses, and angry outbursts are common. Yes, they're a patient. In March, the Rehabilitation Center of Santa Monica, California, sent Joan Rivers, not the Joan Rivers, but Joan Rivers, who suffered from dementia and was on Medicaid, to the emergency room at USC Verdugo Hills Hospital. The nursing home staff said Miss Rivers, 87, had tossed aside her chair, scaring other residents, according to her daughter. Please. Within 24 hours, the hospital cleared her for discharge. Ms. Smith said that she had repeatedly, this is the daughter, she'd repeatedly asked the rehabilitation center to take her mother back, but that it had refused. A social worker at Verdugo Hills said she, too, had tried unsuccessfully to get the nursing home to readmit Miss Rivers. Jesus, that's heartbreaking. Linda Tates, the chief compliance officer at Mariner Healthcare, which operates the rehabilitation center and 19 other nursing homes in California, said the center hadn't known that Miss Rivers wanted to return. Go fuck yourself, Linda. Miss Rivers eventually was admitted to the Colonial Care Center nursing home in Long Beach, California. Oh my God. There she contracted COVID-19. She died July 20th. Jesus fucking Christ. Jesus Christ. Oh, Jesus. Federal law requires nursing homes to follow strict guidelines when they intend to evict someone. They must give 30 days notice and come up with a plan to transfer the resident to a facility that can meet his or her needs. If a resident goes to a hospital, the facility must hold the bed for a week. But nursing homes frequently flout these rules, according to employees and state-funded ombudsmen who help oversee the industry. The New York Times reported in July that nursing homes were evicting an increasing number of low-income and therefore low-profitability residents into homeless shelters and rundown motels, apparently in violation of federal law. Oh no, it was against the law? Then how did they do it? There is no national data on nursing home evictions. The Times contacted ombudsmen in all 50 states. Some said they had not seen nursing homes dumping patients in hospitals during the pandemic. Fuck you. But in 16 states, including California, Texas, and New York, ombudsmen said the problem was continuing. Some said they believe it's getting worse. Of course it's getting worse. There's more to this. There's more examples that they go through. I just don't think it's productive to continue to go through them. I think we've made the point, is that the profit-seeking motives for-profit, this is what's fucked up, is that this really is such like a perfect example of capital working to benefit itself. Because let's dissect this for a second. Even with Medicare covers at present people 65 and over. It doesn't even cover the entirety of the cost of things. Like, that's why you have to get like a Medicare Part B coverage and shit from a private insurer, because Medicare only pays like 80% of a lot of the services and medications and stuff like that. So you have to buy insurance with your Social Security, which you get paid taxes on. It's just so. The point is that Medicare covers you over 65. Now, that's coming from our tax dollars. The state is using our tax dollars to cover people 65 and over. So who covers people 65 and younger? Well, no one, unless you qualify for Medicaid, in which case, the rates of reimbursement for Medicaid in most states are all, much lower than private insurers and Medicare, so you get worse quality of care. That means you're less healthy, which means when you get to 65, you cost more to take care of. Because as we all know, preventative care is a much more just fucking humane form of healthcare and cheaper form of healthcare. If you can prevent cancer, you don't get cancer, right? Like, if you have access to care and you have a healthy lifestyle, then you don't have to have a heart attack and recover from that and spend, a week in a expensive hospital bed and shit. So the for-profit insurance companies not only try to deny us coverage, but they also offload the costs. They have an incentive to offload the costs until you get to 65, and then you're Medicare eligible, and then we're like, get out. Now you're the taxpayer's cost burden. So there's an incentive for a for-profit healthcare system to displace the cost of bad care onto the state, onto you, onto the tax dollars, onto the taxpayers. And what does that mean financially? What does that mean fiscally? Well, that means that if you are a shareholder or on the executive board, on the board of directors of a health insurance company, that means the less you pay in care, the more you get to keep. And who eventually takes care of those patients is the state, meaning our tax dollars. We're subsidizing their dividends and their executive compensation, our tax dollars, by taking care of sick elderly people, is subsidizing the shareholders' profit and the shareholder value for the people that could have were the gilded Fauntleroys that were able to purchase the shares or make their way onto the board in the first place. It's socialism for the rich and the gaping maw, the unblinking rictus of capitalism for everybody else. What like I said, what a perfect example of capitalism in this article. And I'll make one last point on this too. I'll just cut to the chase. The reason that elderly care is so poor in this country is because we don't value you unless you are a worker. Unless we can exploit you for profit, then we're going to throw you into the Thunderdome. Straight up. Full stop. Period. Let's move on here to something that was sent to me by a fan of the show. Let's say hello to at King Ludwig II. King Ludwig one, or I guess I. Thank you very much for sending this. It's a pretty short one, but this is from a article from mysuburbanlife.com by Alex Ortiz. It came out the 28th of September, and it just says, Foster being a Representative Bill Foster in Illinois, Foster bill aims to provide student loan relief for parents. Oh, that's nice. This is good. This student loans, we're all losing our income because, capitalists are firing us. And, so we're burdened with debt. How do we do this? All right, how do we do this? So let's see what this says. U.S. Representative Bill Foster introduced legislation last week to provide relief for parents experiencing financial burdens and to allow students to take responsibility for college debt incurred on their behalf? What? The Parents Plus Loan and Fairness and Responsibility Act, PLUFRA. I'm sorry. We have fun here, folks. Would allow parents to transfer some loans to the student with the consent of the parent, student, and lender, provided the student meets the credit requirements, according to a news release. Foster, a Democrat from Naperville, argued the bill would provide a rational fix for families struggling to pay these loans. He says here, this legislation would provide a common sense solution for parents facing increasing financial burdens and allow them to transfer student loan debt to their child who is willing to take on the financial responsibility for the loans that allowed them to go to college, Foster said in a release. As college costs continue to rise, why? Well, I don't know why they rise. And economic burdens increase for hardworking families, federal law should allow for parents and students to transfer financial liability for PLUS loans in a way that would work best for their financial situation. Oh, thank you. The National Education Association endorsed the bill. Go fuck yourself. This is, it's so crazy to me. It's so fucking crazy to me. There's a graph which I try to look at all the time, which is income distributed across generations between boomers, Gen X, and millennials. And we don't even really have the data yet for Zoomers, but guys, I hate to tell you, it may not be good. But the graph shows just what a fraction of wealth millennials have in comparison to boomers. And, you think about what it takes as a family to put a child through college. And again, only if I'm not mistaken, somewhere around 40% or somewhere in the high 30s, 40% of Americans get a college education. But to have a bill, just make it free. This is the most neoliberal bullshit. It's such a perfect example of democratic moral apathy. I don't know who this guy's fucking donors are, but why even make a bill for this? And besides, for those that don't know, parents have been using, as soon as debt entered as a strong force in the U.S. household as a replacement for increased wages, debt has become a placeholder for increased wages since the 1970s for a majority of U.S. households. I mean, we should all fucking know it. We probably are all riddled with debt. I know I am. So and since that has happened, here's another one. Put a finger down if your parents have used your social security number to open up a loan. Come on. This shit happens already. Like, what? It should be illegal. Like, why even do this? Why even formalize it? Why even make it legal? It's sick. It's just kicking the can down the road. It's just displacing the financial burden onto younger people. It's just impoverishing a future generation instead of taxing the rich. Are you fucking joking me? Foster, what's wrong with you? Ooh, I'm looking at this guy's dumb fucking face making that politician, you know, when they like try to point, but they're touching their index finger with their thumb, and they're like, well, this is going to be good fiscal for the gods and bones. Fuck this dude, man. Gulag. So in interest of time, I think we're going to wrap up with this last article, which was kindly sent to me by another, I think the second of Dwight's Bites that was sent to me by @cpunk, which was @SEEPVNK. I think they sent to me the Facebook underground fucking drilling disaster that we did in another Dwight's Bites. But this was stunning to me. This was a article that came out September 29th in the Seattle Times by Will Evans. And it's entitled, Robots Prime Day Add to Mounting Injury Crisis at Amazon Warehouses. On Cyber Monday 2014, Amazon Operations Chief Dave Clark proudly unveiled the company's new warehouse of the future in Tracy, California. Behind him, racks packed with vitamins, toy rockets, and paintball gear zipped across the floor, lugged by the orange robots that would help catapult the company toward world domination. Again, not a good thing. That's not a good thing. Monopoly is not a good thing, but the fact that they even boast it is fucking brazen. Workers no longer would have to walk massive warehouse floors to find the right power drill. Instead, robots would bring the drill directly to them. The hour or more it took to process a package had been pared down to as little as 15 minutes. More Amazon customers could now get products delivered to their door the same day they clicked buy. The following July, Amazon rolled out another innovation, Prime Day. The holiday shopping season was already a pressure cooker of warehouse activity known as peak inside Amazon. Oh, this motherfucker. I'm looking at this guy, Dave Clark, in a picture, and he's doing one of the cardinal sins of wearing a crew neck undershirt with a open collar. Now the company had just manufactured a second peak in the middle of the year, a brand new holiday that would become pivotal to the company's growth. So they just created a holiday. That's actually fucking brilliant. Those fucking idiots. In the 6 years since Clark stood in that cavernous warehouse and saw the future, the company's value has leaped from less than $150 billion pobrecitos to more than $1 trillion, and CEO Jeff Bezos has become the richest person in the world. The company's top leaders have fashioned a mythology around its growth, casting Amazon as a force for good. Can't tell you how dangerous that is. Its obsession with delighting customers fuels a virtuous cycle, they say, that ends up benefiting everyone, even Amazon's more than 250,000 warehouse workers. In fact, as senators have fired off letters to the company and workers have led walkouts over health and safety, Amazon has engaged in an unapologetic public relations campaign. But a new cache of company records obtained by Reveal from the Center for Investigative Reporting, including internal safety reports and weekly injury numbers from its nationwide network of fulfillment centers, shows that company officials have profoundly misled the public and lawmakers about its record on worker safety. They reveal a mounting injury crisis at Amazon warehouses. I almost said workhouses. One that is especially acute at robotic facilities and during Prime Week and holiday peak. One that Amazon has gone to great lengths to conceal. With weekly data from 2016 through 2019 from more than 150 Amazon warehouses, god damn it, the records expose definitively the cost to workers of Amazon's vast shipping empire and the bald misrepresentations the company has deployed to hide its growing safety crisis. Let's take a look at these numbers. Amazon often points to the tens of millions of dollars it has invested to enhance safety practices, yet Amazon's injury rates have gone up each of the past 4 years. So workers are getting hurt more as time goes on, even in the face of investment. In 2019, Amazon fulfillment centers recorded 14,000 serious injuries, those requiring days off or job restrictions, like a racehorse being put down after it broke its leg. The overall rate, the average rate of 7.7 serious injuries per 100 employees. 8 injuries per 100 employees. Think about that for a second. Think about 100 people that you work with. Think about 100 people in your class at school. And 8 of those people that year are going to get seriously injured? What the fuck? It says it was 33% higher than it was in 2016 and nearly double the most recent injury standard. So I'm looking at these graphs here of serious injury rates at Amazon fulfillment centers. And it looks at 3 of the Washington state fulfillment centers of Amazon's. And in DuPont, Washington, in 2019, the rate of serious injury per 100 workers was 22.4. In that year, a quarter of the workers in that warehouse were seriously injured. What the fuck? What the fuck? And the fucking bar graph is just a steady line up, a strong line up. The data backs up the accounts of Amazon warehouse workers and former safety professionals who say the company has used robots to ratchet up production quotas to the point that humans can't keep up without hurting themselves. For each of the past 4 years, injury rates have been significantly higher at Amazon's robotic warehouses than at its traditional sites. To pause here, I mean, it's stunning to me in general that robots and technology are used as often a cheaper placeholder for human labor. And what's even more fucking sick about this, is that even in those warehouses where robots were employed to make things cheaper and more efficient, that's where workers have to compete harder against fucking robots and are getting hurt and seriously injured because of that competition with a fucking robot. Are you fucking joking me? There's a little example here. It says, Cecilia Hoyos, 56, has been at the company for 9 years. She lives just a block away from the DuPont warehouse, and her $17.90 hourly wage supports 2 children and a 1.5-year-old granddaughter. I do like working there, it's just that it's hurting me and they're not listening to what my body is telling me, she said. Since the warehouse opened in 2014, Hoyos has seen the production quotas go higher and higher. Those quotas changed dramatically when the robots arrived at Amazon. Company officials promised they'd save workers such as Hoyos from the fatigue of walking miles a day to find customer orders. All they would have to do is stand in place and grab things. We thought it was so cool, she said, but she soon wished she was back to walking all day. Jesus Christ, this is so fucking dystopian. Instead of greeting colleagues as she moved through the facility, she was isolated at a workstation, and standing 10 hours a day doing repetitive motions proved to be much harder on her body, Hoyos said. The robots are too efficient. They could bring items so quickly that the productivity expectations for workers more than doubled, according to former senior operations manager who saw the transformation, and they kept climbing. I'm going to stop here with this because I think we've made the point. So I'm going to leave us with this, which is something that I think about fucking every day. Something that I think about when I'm up from 2 till 4 in the morning, which is the productivity pay gap. The productivity pay gap. And I'm reading something here from the Economic Policy Institute. And I'm just going to read from this real quickly so you understand what Cecilia Hoyos is going through, right? Anyway, it reads here, most Americans believe that a rising tide should lift all boats, that as an economy expands, everybody should reap the rewards. And for 2.5 decades, beginning in the late 1940s, this was how our economy worked. Over this period, the pay, wages, and benefits of typical workers rose in tandem with productivity, aka how much workers produce per hour. You know, in the case of the Amazon warehouse, like how many items do they pick, how many packages do they package up, etc. In other words, as the economy became more efficient and expanded, everyday Americans benefited correspondingly through better pay. But in the 1970s, this started to change. I'm going to try to put this simply. Productivity has grown 6 times more than pay since 1979 and 2018. Productivity, meaning how good you are at your job, how efficient you are at your job, how much you produce, has grown 6 times faster than the pay. So you should be paid 6 times more than what you're compared to what the, let's say you were a boomer working in the 70s and you're like, you know, harassing secretaries and shit, and whatever. I don't know. You were fucking around, and now your child, a millennial, is working 6 times better than you are and not getting paid any differently. Does that, raise the fucking hair on the back of your neck? Does that drive you insane? Since 1979, pay and productivity have diverged. From 1979 to 2018, net productivity rose 108%. So I, as a millennial worker, am 100% more efficient and productive than a worker from 1979. At the same time, the hourly pay of typical workers essentially stagnated, increasing only 11.6% over 39 years when adjusting for inflation. This means that although Americans are working more productively than ever, the fruits of their labors have primarily accrued to those at the top and to corporate profits in recent years. I can tweet this out or DM me or something like that if you want to get a hold of this this study. But what it really says is let's apply some kind of Marxian economics to this. Surplus is the term that he used to discuss, what you produce. If I produce, fucking 10 chairs a day, but how many chairs does my house really need, right? So I produce much more than I need. So this surplus exists in the economy. But where does it go? Well, under capitalism, it goes to the owners of capital. If I show up at the chair factory and I make chairs all day, where are the chairs when I go home? They're still in the hands of the capitalist that owns the factory. So he owns all this shit. What do I get in return for my chair-making ability? Well, he pays me a wage. But now it's 2018, and I'm making 100 chairs a day, and I'm still getting paid the same. So what the fuck? What the fuck? And to tie this into what we were talking about earlier, of course, for us, there's this expectation that things just get worse. Now, and in tying it into the fiduciary part of it, we now have replaced those rising wages with debt to afford the things that we need through credit, through loans to a for-profit bank. And we're not getting paid properly according to how much we're producing. And everything that, all these kind of things that they taught us as part of our culture, as a part of teaching us in school, that hard work pays off. Ingratiate yourself to the factory owners and they will compensate you thusly. That's all propaganda that benefits the factory owners. That's all propaganda that benefits Jeff Bezos, right? Cecilia at the Amazon warehouse, she is twice as productive as she was a few years ago, and she's not getting paid twice as much, right? So when we talk about that thing about how we expect things to get worse, they are. When we tie it into the millennial burnout thing, look at us, man. Of course, even to keep the same standard of living, we have to go into debt and work many factors harder each year just to keep our fucking necks above the water. It's sick. It's sick, and it's making us sick. And what do we have to look forward to at the end of our life is to just be, to get so frustrated with how unjust everything was and throw a fucking poker chip at fucking our neighbor with dementia and get thrown into a psychiatric ward and then into a motel or a homeless shelter. I don't know when the episode with Jared Holt is going to come out in relationship to this, but if it has come out already, I think I'd like to express some regret from that, because Chris really pulled us back, which I think was really helpful, and saying but don't get black-pilled. And I recognize that, these episodes or just, our fucking daily lives can inure us to the pain and to make us kind of it can make some of us drive towards nihilism and just say, look, there's nothing I can do about it, so I'm just going to, sit here and blah, 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 and, not do anything about it. And, what can I really do? All is lost, blah, blah, blah. Those are understandable feelings because we are at a crossroads. We are in the nexus of change where we can visualize the end of the world better than we can visualize the end of capitalism. Which is, it's wild, but it's true. Do we even know what a life looks like without capitalism? Do we know what a life would look like under socialism? And that is, to me, where I maintain the positivity that I maintain. I gotta say, like, I was in a really dark place like a year ago when I was thinking about climate change, and I don't remember if it was, I think it was the Amazon fires, the fires in the Amazon rainforest that really got me. And if, some of you might put a finger down if you had crippling existential dread as a result of the Amazon fires. And I was like, oh, but those are the lungs of the world. And that's how we do the carbon sink and the point of no return. And we can't return carbon to the soil and stuff like that. And it really got me. And I don't have those feelings as much partially because I've been, involved in this project with you guys where we can discuss, like, what are the aspirational things that we want? That, to me, is the exciting part of this that keeps me from being black-pilled into falling into nihilism, is to say, what are our demands? And what kind of world do we want to look? What kind of world do we want? And what is it going to look like when we've overthrown capitalism because capitalism is done, guys. Like, I almost feel like we should amend the beginning of the show saying, like, late stage capitalism. This is end stage capitalism. I mean, you look at something that I'll invoke from Richard Wolff from Democracy at Work from Economic Update all the time, where he's like, when you see leaders scrambling around like chickens with their head cut off, you know that that's the end of a system because nobody has any idea what to do. And frankly, if we're being really honest, and I'm just kind of like digesting this and reeling from the Trump-Biden fucking debate, which was embarrassing to say the least, and terrifying in a way, obviously because of the white nationalist rhetoric and the call to arms, the little wink call to arms that Trump did with the Proud Boys. It's super clear that they have no idea what to do. And frankly, those people aren't going to be alive that much longer. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, Trump's 74. He's probably almost 75. Biden's 78. Look, let's get serious here. This is our world to inherit. It's our world to mold, not theirs. Not theirs. They have control of it now, and, again, tying it into the graph where we look at what a fraction of wealth millennials have in comparison to, boomers like Trump or fucking, I guess Joe Biden's part of the silent generation. He's not even a fucking boomer. He's older than that. It's not going to be theirs. It's going to be ours. And it is up to us to assert ourselves in whatever ways yields results and say, this is the kind of world that we want. I think about a workplace in which I'm a co-owner. I think about a workplace in which I'm a co-owner because then I can get together and democratically talk about with my co-owners, say, hey, maybe we should knock off at 12 o'clock on Fridays. Maybe we don't work on Fridays at all. When we're the owners of the factory instead of a capitalist owning the factory, then we get to decide what to do with the surplus. We get to decide what to do with the profits. Are we okay with having enough profits and maybe reducing our profit margin a little bit to have a Friday off? That would be our decision. That is an exciting thing to think about, transitioning our economy to one that is owned by the workers. That's what's different about like state capitalism, which is, having state-owned industries. That means the state owns it, and the state is its own power entity. In my humble viewpoint, what I would like to look for in new American socialism, and I'm kind of trying to coin that term a little bit, is like, I want it to be owned by the workers. I want to own my means of production with the people in my community. I would rather buy, pork chops from the farmer that lives close to me rather than from fucking Purdue, or fucking Tyson, from somebody I don't know far, far away, or have that be commoditized. And therefore, maybe we can say something about animal cruelty and, and good animal husbandry. I know we talked about that on the last Patreon episode with Lloyd Howell. What up, Lloyd? So the transition to socialism and the excitement, I hope I'm not sounding too professorial, but the excitement around what we want this to look like and how we can get there and assert ourselves towards that horizon is helping me manage my feelings at the least. And not allowing me to, and it's stopping me from devolving into black pill and nihilism and stuff. So I think there's a lot of themes that we can tie in this episode towards. We understand and are continuing to understand the problems that exist. And I do find that there's a value in these episodes because they continue to arm you with the knowledge that you can have a conversation with your peers and your family about, to say like, hang on, guys. Yes, here are the problems. Yes, here's the issues that we have at hand, but here's the potential solutions. And it involves everybody's participation. We need comrades not to become nihilistic and fall into being black-pilled, because we need everybody's participation. We're going to need everybody that can bring their effort to this coming change and transition into whatever comes after this end stage of capitalism to come together, and we need your help. So I say that in a little bit of a mea culpa, because I realized that, in that episode, I don't think I really drove home as much of the positivity that can and will come about from this as I wanted to. So there you have it. Pretty long episode of Dwight's Bites, but I hope you found it to be enjoyable. Again, I always appreciate your feedback and your interest in the articles and information that we discuss in these episodes. I am learning as much as you are in this, and I hope we are all kind of like whetting our respective intellectual curiosity and our historical curiosity. And I think, from what we just talked about, most importantly, our future curiosity to see what we want to make this thing look like. So, here's to putting Robert Kraft in a gulag. I don't know. I'm sorry. I really like this idea of billionaires having their rights stripped away. When you reach, I'm sorry. When you reach 10 figures, like, you just don't have a right to privacy or, personal space. I'll leave it at that. Enough. Parody, allegedly. Blah, 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 blah. Stay cool, everybody. Till next time. Stay cool, everybody. Till next time. Stay cool, everybody. Till next time. Stay